In a world where many people see reality as a circle or a rectangle, the truth is that issues are cylinders. Rather than a two-dimensional understanding, we will flush out the three-dimension complexities through nuanced conversation and civil, respectable discourse to highlight all perspectives on controversial issues. I'm your host, William Roosh, a high school teacher who's trying to transform education as we know it. Welcome to the Anti-Echo Chamber. This is Cylinder Radio. Hello and welcome to the next installment of Cylinder Radio. Today, my guest is a friend, an all-around impressive guy. He's an educator, an actor, a singer, and he is a news anchor in Los Angeles for Spectrum One. Melvin Robert.
Good to be here today. I feel very honored to be here.
Yeah, this is very cool, man. We just had like a long conversation. And I'm like, all right, now I'm gonna start the mic. But you're more familiar with this, like talking to the mic stuff than I am. So my concept that I want to talk about today, the cylinder, is this idea of mindset privilege. And this is something that I'm working out in my head that I hope I can develop over time. And I want to have this conversation with you because I think you could help me develop this idea, because this is an original idea of mine. I don't have many original ideas. So I'm going to just give a little bit of a background about mindset privilege, and then I want to hear about you, and you can introduce yourself to those listening. So mindset is this concept from Carol Dweck. She is a professor at Stanford who talks about growth mindset and fixed mindset, the power of yet, that if you fail, it's just you haven't succeeded yet. A quote that I love hers is, "This is hard, this is fun." Like the idea of things not being so binary. It's not that you're unathletic, it's that you could be more athletic. It's not that you're good or bad, it's just you could be better. And I use it for raising my kids. So instead of saying you're good or bad, it's you make good decisions or bad decisions. Or instead of, you failed, it's like you can always try harder. So you're not the fastest or the strongest, but you can be the hardest working. And then blending that idea with the concept of privilege, which is very, mainstream right now, and there's a lot of talk about it. And I think that there's nuance involved in privilege that I want to flush out. And the idea of, is it a privilege, let's say an unearned advantage, earned or unearned advantage, to have this mindset? And is that perhaps the best privilege you can have in this world or in this life, is to have the privilege of a growth mindset and a mindset that embraces challenges and hardships? So I sought you out, even though we're friends. I said, I want to have you on the podcast because I had Sydney Smith on, the Iron Man with no legs, and we talked about mindset, but not specifically mindset privilege. And that's something that when you and I have had conversations in the past, it really stuck. You actually helped me develop this idea just from talking to you, and so I was like, okay, well, I got to this point thinking about this idea after talking to you, and then I wanted to bring you on to help me flush it out, because there's something to this, and I'm not sure what it is, and I hope that you can help me. So, Melvin, can you give my audience just a little bit of your background, who you are, and why you're here, what do you do, stuff like that?
Yeah. So I'm born and raised in Inglewood, grew up near the Forum, went to Loyola High School, all boys high school. Went to Loyola Marymount for my bachelor's degree and master's degree. So I'm like such an LA kid. I went to middle school in West LA. My grandparents live in South Central. My aunts live in the Hollywood Hills. I'm such an LA person and grew up kind of everywhere in all parts of the city. And growing up, we were raised, my brother and I, to have this just appreciation for, everybody, everything, all places. And, regardless of where anybody comes from, that doesn't make you or them better than, it doesn't make them better than you, and it doesn't make you better than them. And my grandparents especially were big, really big influences in my life. Both my dad's mother and then my mom's mom and dad. I mean, so growing up, and they both would have these certain mantras that they would say to us. My dad's mom would always say, it's really important, Mel, that you learn to defend yourself within yourself. You got to know, who you are. Because I got bullied a lot as a kid. When I would go to her and I would talk to her about it, she would say, you have to defend yourself within yourself. You have to be able to do that. And you have to know who you are and have a confidence in your decisions and to be really kind of steadfast in who you are and in your beliefs, that if any kind of a challenge or anything presents itself, you have the faculties and the, the ability and the, to say that's not true. Like, I know who I am. It's funny, when you were talking about, it made me think about my grandfather, who would tell us as a kid, it's hard, but it's fair.
Yeah.
He would come and pick up my brother and I to school on the days that my mom and dad couldn't take us. And we had these bunk beds in our room. And we would get up and he would literally be like pacing with his hands behind his back. And he would say, it's hard, but it's fair. Get up. It's hard, but it's fair. Come on. It's hard, but it's fair. And he would say that. Yeah. And anytime, like, as we got older, he'd say, if we'd be complaining about something, it's hard, but it's fair. And I was like, what is that? And I was like, what does that mean? Papa, like, you'd always say that. But as I got older, I kind of digested that as, these things, it's not that I can't do it. It's hard, but it's fair fuel for the journey that lies ahead. That's kind of was my deduction of it to help me get through it, And with that, it was this whole thing, as I moved through life and as I moved through all the things that I really wanted to do. I mean, nothing has been easy even now. I mean, every morning I get up really early to go to work. I anchor the morning news. We go on the air at 5 a.m. I get up at 2:30 in the morning. I get to work by like 3:30. And every morning when I walk into the building, every morning, no one knows that I do this. I walk into the building and I press my hands up every morning. I look at the sign that says, Spectrum Networks. I press my hands up and I say thank you, because I'm so aware that I'm really fortunate to be able to do this. And there's so many people that want to sit in the chair I sit in and want to be news anchors, especially in the number 2 market in the country. But I, was blessed to be able to get this opportunity. But I also know that I worked really hard to get the opportunity, and it was not easy, mentally. Right. I always tell people when I talk to people and they're like, I want to be on TV, or I want to be an actor, I want to be a singer. I'm just like, yeah, okay, what should I do? And I say, well, you should perfect your craft, whether you need to get acting coach, voice coach, work hard, be disciplined. But also the companion piece to that is your mental toughness. Yeah. Because the mental part of it too, you need to get on a program. Whether you need to meditate, and meditation looks different for everybody. A breathing program, whether you do yoga, whether you go to church. I don't know what you need to do, what's good for you, but something where you are able to kind of get to the point where you develop some cushion space, right? So you can kind of be a little bit outside of yourself and recognize, why your triggers or your habits or things that might deter you from getting what you want, so you know how to kind of deal with that, right, and move yourself forward.
So when your grandfather was saying it's hard but it's fair, this gets at just the part of the nuance of privilege. Sometimes it's not fair. Sure. Life is not fair, but he's saying that essentially it's almost is saying that almost recognizing that it's not, clearly life is not fair, but recognizing it that the whole situation is. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think I don't know that he realized that what he was doing was developing and cultivating this sense of resiliency within my brother and I. I don't even know that it was his intent was to be that sophisticated. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's a guy that's didn't graduate high school till he was later in his life. I mean, he grew up in New Orleans. At the age of 17, he had 7 brothers and sisters. He was the oldest. His father couldn't get any work because it rained so much in New Orleans. His mother was like, you need to go to work. She took him out of high school, signed a form so he can get on the merchant marine ship, and he became a merchant marine. Yeah. And he traveled around and he would send money back home. So, but he was such a smart man and he worked so hard. And anything he wanted to do, he learned about it. So when he got off the ship, he wanted to be a plasterer. He moved to LA and he wanted to be a plasterer. But he worked at the post office overnight just to be able to make money to get by. And then he took that money and he would pay for himself to go to LA Trade Tech. And he would always tell us, you got to know your craft. You got to know what you're doing. And he could have easily just said, I'm going to go be a plasterer. I'm going to go into construction. But he was like, no, I needed to know what I was doing. Yeah. You need to know what you're doing. And he would instill these, lessons into my brother and I that set us up, right, for success. And so it became, it's hard. You're going to have challenges in life. Everything's not going to be perfect. But this is what it is. It's fair. It's going to happen. It's fair. You're resilient. You can do it. You can move beyond it. I don't know that that was that level of sophistication, but that's kind of what, it's funny, as I'm talking to you, that's what I really, what it taught me.
Well, so the nuance of privilege is, there's a lot of privileges that get like a lot more airtime, so to speak, which is, race, gender, things like that. And those are privileged. I think you can argue like the level that they are in society and stuff like that. And there's, back and forth on that. And I'll cover that on a different podcast. But there is a real privilege, let's say, in having strong parents and role models.
Yeah.
And you look at the data on, boys who grow up without a male role model in the house, and just the likelihood of going to prison, of just ending up in the system, of getting someone pregnant, all this stuff. It's unbelievable. It's a hockey stick, like the difference. So, is that a privilege that supersedes others? Is the mindset privilege something that it has to start in the home? I mean, how do we? I'm trying to think where to go with this. So, how do we go to? You were instilled with this. Mm-hmm. How much of this is innate in you, though? The nurture versus nature aspect of the grit that you had, and you didn't go into it, but you told me about, when you wanted to be on the news, like you worked all of these jobs for free. You called them up and you said, I want to cover this. I want to cover this. Just let me just cover it. Like you worked for free. No one wants to work for free, and you did it. And then you get up every day and you hone your craft and you do all this, blah, 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 blah. Like you had really strong role models.
Yeah.
How much of that is in the strong role model, and how much of that is innate in you? And you probably don't know, but what do you think?
I think it's I think it's some of it is like role model, yes, but I also believe that it is something that's innate within the individual, because there wasn't really anybody in my life who sought me out and said, "Hey, Melvin, you could do this." No one did that. There was nobody that I had these things I wanted to do, but nobody was like, "Hey," looked me in the eye and said, "You could do this." And so a lot of it was just me, because look, I didn't have anybody in my family who was like a singer or a dancer or an actor. Right. I didn't have anybody in my family. People in my family were teachers and entrepreneurs. Right. So I didn't have anybody. So it was just in me. It was in me, this thing. And then I would just read things, or I would sit at home and watch YouTube and watch people's stories and listen to what people did, or how they just worked for free and they did things. And I was like, okay, well then I should do that too. So I would do that all the time. And I would listen to things or read interviews or watch, and I became really obsessed in some ways with people's stories and how people got to where they were. People that I admired. And I would Google, or before I could Google, it was my mom would get magazines and the newspaper, and I would just kind of fumble through, and if I would see something about somebody I admired, I would read it. Yeah. And then I would read their story, and I was like, ooh, okay. So then if they did ABCD, okay, then maybe I should do that too. Yeah. And then I had, a friend of mine, one of my best friends, Trinity, that said, well, because I was at this point, I was just frustrated, because I'm like, I don't even know how to do this, and I have these things I want to do, and I don't even know, how do I do it? And she's like, well, look, there's nothing that can stop you. If you want to do it, you should do it. I'm like, but how? She was like, well, start small. You know what I mean? If you want to do it, are you willing to do it no matter what? Regardless if somebody pays you, regardless if somebody looks at you and says, you suck. Yeah. You're not talented. Are you willing to do it no matter what? And then that was a real game changer for me. And I was like, well, all right. So I would Google shows that I wanted to be on, find the producers. I'd find them on LinkedIn. I'd find them on Instagram. I'd find them on Facebook. I'd figure out people's emails. I just would cold call. And then I would tell myself, look, the success lies in the doing. It doesn't matter if they don't respond to you. It doesn't matter if they don't get back to you. This is about you and you believing in yourself. That's it. Mm-hmm. Don't get caught up in, if they didn't get back to me, it means I suck or I'm not good. No. I would literally stop the mindset. I'm like, nope, this is about you believed in yourself enough and you did it. But that was all stuff that I got from working with just me. It was just in me. And then I had a meditation coach I started to work with that helped me get that cushion space and be able to separate the crazy mind stuff and the bullying triggers, and to know how to deal with that, and to know that's just a habit, that's not a real voice, to be able to navigate that. But a lot of it was just in me to go, because because no one in my family, to be honest, they could empathize with me. They couldn't help because nobody was in that business.
Right. So, the term gets thrown out, and it's like it's not a term that's used with a lot of kindness. So I don't like using it, but I'm just gonna use it for here. Is victim mentality? Yeah. People say like, don't have a victim mentality, but many of us, all of us in some capacity or another have been victims, and that's real. And in your mind, if you feel like you've been victimized, there's an element that perception is reality. But gratitude, there's a Neil Donald Walsh quote I love. I have it up in my wall at my classroom. It says, "The struggle ends when gratitude begins." I love that. And you were talking about, the gratitude when you walk in there in the morning. But how do you, because this gets to the idea of labels. And I want to talk about privilege, and I want to talk about how to take these mindsets. The mindset that you have of, I'm going to succeed, you can't stop me. That's all there is to it. It's very Tony Robbins. It's very like Gary Vee. It's all like the motivational stuff. I love it, but there is something here about labels that matter. And okay, so I read this book called Don't Label Me by Irshad Manji. And she is an African immigrant of Indian descent who is Muslim and gay. And so she hits everything on the intersectionality matrix. And she said, I hate labels because they don't tell you really about who I am as a person. It's very surface level. And they think, oh, she's gay, she must think this way. Or she's Muslim, she must believe this, or not like this. And she's like, that's not the way that human beings work. We're all very complicated. We are the ultimate minority as being, an individual. So there is something, how do you recognize the uniqueness in all of us while also like not like using that as gives them extra legitimacy in all areas or something like that, because you are a black dude from Inglewood. Like that, and that matters, where I'm like a straight white man from super suburban Pennsylvania. We had a white picket fence. My parents never had to worry about money, but we weren't rich. It was like classic, like middle America life. So for me to talk about privilege, it has a different tinge on it. And for me to say like this, if the words that just came out of your mouth came out of my mouth, or came out of someone who was born into a millionaire family in Bel Air, I don't know if it would have the same effect on the people that I'm trying to reach, which is everyone, especially young people who are struggling in life. So how does your labels, your identity, like, why does that give you more legitimacy? And why does that, why is it that I guess it would be, why does it give you more legitimacy in the eyes of so many in society? And why is it that if I would say those things, or someone who is, the son of a celebrity or something like that would say those things, it would be different than someone who hits on different labels on like through intersectionality? And do you understand what I'm saying? It's a little jumbled, but I'm trying to work this out. But
I think part of it is that I got to this point, and this is recently, where I saw all of my labels as my power. And I didn't always feel that way. And
I'm sorry to cut you off. I want to hear this. Yeah. This is mindset privilege.
Yeah.
Is I said this before, is life puts hurdles in front of you.
Yeah.
You could go, oh my God, that's so unfair. They don't have hurdles. Or you can go, jumping hurdles builds a lot stronger legs than just running does. So bring it on. So all of these things that are up against me, it'll make me better. Yeah. That's what gives me the edge.
And I wonder too sometimes. Well, I guess actually, part of it is because I was bullied so much as a kid. I mean, the first time I ever got called a faggot was when I was 7 years old, and I got thrown in a trash can. I mean, so there's times in my life where I got bullied really badly from second grade all the way to 8th grade, so the age of 7 to the age of 13,
Jeez.
Which are very, developmentally like important, crucial years. Yeah. And in my adult, like whenever I have moments, I just, had a little situation a couple weeks ago, and I was like, well, here's the thing, Mel. It's not, you were thrown in it's not going to be as bad as this is not as bad as being thrown in the trash can. Like, you've been thrown in a trash can.
Yeah.
And you rose above it. So it's okay. You know, I mean, and I'll have that kind of that moment of grace with myself where I'll remind myself, like, you've risen from there, you know, to like where you are. And in multiple, I think across multiple like platforms, some would say like, the odds are pretty much stacked up against you. Like, all the research, you know, like mentally, psychologically, like, you know, just the way emotionally, like the damage and the things I had to overcome. Because from a young kid, one of the first lessons that I learned was that who I am is not valuable or important. Like, as a kid, you go to the second grade, you're in school, and that's like the age where it's like, you know, kind of, do people like me? Is it okay? Like, you're trying to make friends. And one of the first lessons that I learned, like in second grade, was like, who you matters, like, sucks. I mean, like, that was like, you know what I mean?
You could have turned that inward though, and most
been, like,
do.
On, like,
I mean,
thing of like,
yeah, you've been an educator. I'm an educator.
Yeah.
Like, what is it that you go, okay, they're looking at me this way. This is okay. So that must be true. I must just be a piece of shit, and I'm terrible, and I'm no good, and you know how that thinking gets.
And I will have those shame spirals.
Yeah.
I mean, I will have still. I mean, like, yeah, like, I'll be triggered by something, but I've always had this, I guess, this way about me where it was, you know, horrible and bad. And when I was 13, like, I never attempted to suicide, but I started to really contemplate, like, you know, like, killing myself. Like, what would that be like, you know? And but I don't know, but I always just kind of had this thing, and part of it was my mom. Like, my mom would always tell my brother and I, like, you can do anything. Like, you can do anything that you want to do. Like, I'm not ever surprised. Like, when we would do great things, my mom would say, I'm not surprised, you know? And I had, you know, like, just people in my life from, like, you know, my mom and dad, or my grandmother was, like, my dad's mom, you know, who just passed away at the end of February, was, like, such a big influence in my life, because she would always, you know, kind of prop me up, or when I would go to her and I'd be crying, or I'd be upset because of something that happened at school, and she just kind of was like, you know, but you're great, you know, and it's okay. And, you know, and so I think it was a lot of my family around me, but that also just helped me to kind of develop that thing. But to your point about victimization, it's easy to make that choice, and there, you know, but there was just something in me that, I don't know, it was like, I don't know, be cliche, like the eye of the tiger, you know, that always was like, all right, I always kind of had this like thing where I'd be down for a minute and it would hurt me, but I just always would want to push forward and always want to rise, you know, higher, and always wanted to like be better.
Did you know that was going to lead you nowhere good?
What?
If you went down that road of, you know what, I am a piece of shit. You know what, I am no good.
And I did.
People don't like me.
And I did go down that path, especially with regard to like the things I wanted to do. Because so here's a kid that got bullied, and then for 8 years of his life, but then he wants the innate thing in him for a career is to like go be in the entertainment industry, which is like constantly going before people, like
judging eyes, yeah.
And my brain would like process that as like, oh, these are like bullies and they don't like me. So then I wouldn't get a job and I suck and I'm bad. It was like this shame spiral because my body, it was a similar feeling, right? But through meditation, getting into that just in 2014, because I had like started out entertaining, then I stopped, and then I started because I didn't think I was good enough and I couldn't navigate my mental space. And that meditation gave me the cushion space to go, okay, this feeling is familiar, but what about this is familiar? What does this feel like? Oh, it feels like how I used to feel when I'd be on the yard and everybody would gather around me and call me names. Okay. So, but that's not really happening right now. It's just a feeling of familiarity, right?
Right.
So you know that like, but that's not what's happening now because we are what we think. We are what we do, not what we think. So I was able to identify that as like, oh, it's just like a trigger feeling. That's not really, is that what's happening now? No. But it's just a feeling. It's just, it just feels really familiar. And in some ways, subconsciously, it's like, it feels good. And then you attach that goodness to the story, right? Of like, see, it's because of da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That's why. And you can make up a story, but it's like that story will screw you up. So the meditation gave me the cushion space to go, oh, okay, it's this, like showing my fingernails. It's like it's a habit.
Right.
And then you go, oh, that's just a habitual, but I got to the point where I was able to recognize that's just a habitual thought because it seems like I'm being bullied. But if I look right now, it's a lot of mental work. I'm not being bullied. I went to an audition for a job and I wasn't the right fit. Talk about mindset. It was reframing it. wasn't my journey, it wasn't my path. Doesn't mean that it doesn't ping me or hurt me, because I'm human, but I am able now to identify what that was a trigger, what it was. But a lot of it, like I said, it was meditation coach, but also it was like me, because I really was willing to do the work. I had a great therapist for a number of years, this guy by the name of Jonathan Lynch, who was spectacular for almost maybe like 8 years. He helped me too a lot. Process it. And just to understand, like, you have the power.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that, because so many things, like when I would just in life, you get caught in the story and the story like becomes you. And I didn't realize that I had the power to go, wait a minute, no, stop. Negative thought, stop, or to reset or to rewire. I didn't know I could do that.
Right.
And then I learned I have the power to like will what I want, and I have the power to go, nope. Like Deepak Chopra has this whole thing about like just kind of cutting the thought and like thinking about the energy in your hands, just to like redirect the thought.
Yeah.
And I started to apply some of these principles to my life, and I was like, oh, I have the ability to go, yeah. And then that voice gets like quieter and quieter and quieter. Now, I'm sure people out there watching are probably like, that sounds exhausting. And you know what, everybody? It is.
Yeah, I mean, but that's hard work, right? Getting up at 2 a.m. It is. The way like you can do hard work is very interesting, because getting up at 2 a.m. or people who go crush it in the gym is hard work. But for some people, sitting quietly is hard. It's much harder.
And I used to say I couldn't meditate.
Yeah.
Because I'm like,
do you do like TM?
Too busy. It's too busy. I can't do it. And then finally one of my best friends, who was pushing on me forever, she's like, one day she finally was like, I'm going to counter you and just say that's actually why you need to do it.
I've heard that. I think Tim Ferriss said, like, if you can't find 10 minutes a day to meditate, you probably need to do it for 30. You know, like, do you do like transcendental? Do you have like a mantra? Do you do that kind of stuff? And
I have a mantra that I use. And then like I'll call it like tune up, and I'll go get a tune up, and I'll get like today I got a different mantra.
Because the idea for people who aren't familiar with meditation, this comes up a lot, like the importance of it. And I have done it, and I got in a little groove of it, and then I stopped. And I think it's a reminder that I need to get back into it, because when you feel like you're getting off the rails a little bit. But what you said is really, it's exactly what meditation is. And I talked to students about it. It's almost like you're sitting there looking at a freeway, and cars are going by, and instead of going like, oh, that's a red car, I wonder who's in that car, but it just goes by. It's gone. It's just that you don't attach meaning to it. So, things will come up in your head like, oh, I forgot to pay that bill, or, oh my gosh, I have the homework due, or whatever it is. And it's just like, it'll be there in 10 minutes.
That's right.
It goes in and out, and you can apply that then. And I don't know if I've ever heard it explained the way he just did. Like, you can apply that then to things that happen in your life. Yeah, that happened. Yeah, that was terrible. Yeah, I was born in this situation. Yeah, I have this going on with me. And it can be serious stuff. I'm not minimizing people's hardships. And it's real. And that's not who you are. That's an element of it. And if you attach too much meaning to it, you recognize it, you process it, you go to therapy, but you can't focus just in that one car, you're going to miss the whole thing. And, when you said like, when you talk about flipping it around, I give like relationship advice sometimes to my high schoolers. And one of the things when they go through a breakup, or they ask a girl out or a boy out and they say no, I'm like, well, that's good, because essentially this person doesn't want you in their life, and that's a good thing. Or if you ask a girl out, you go up, you ask a girl out, or a guy or whatever, and you say like, hey, do you want to go out with me? I would love to take you out to dinner. And they say, no, ew, gross, get away from me, weirdo. It's like, oh, what a horrible person you are. Like, you just saved me $50 on a dinner. Like, that's such a good way to, and it's not that there's something wrong with you. There's just something wrong with the two of you together. And that's what relationships are. It's not that you're perfect or your spouse is perfect. It's like together you got something going. And, to be able to get there is really cool.
Because to that point, one of my favorite quotes is the Theodore Roosevelt Man in the Arena. Mm-hmm. And that was talking about,
we've talked about that
mindset, and it's how you frame things. Because, like I said, I had this whole thing with when I started to reach out to producers and casting directors. It was like, okay, success lies in the doing. It's not about whether or not they write you back. This is about you believing in yourself enough to put yourself out there. Yeah. And I say the same thing, like with even if I want to ask someone on a date, or even like other like things that in work life or anything. I'm like, this is about me putting myself out there. I got in the arena. And if you're not in the arena, and Dr. Brene Brown, who I love, she like said, you know, she's like, if you're not in the arena, because she uses this quote, she's like, I don't want to hear from you. Like, what do you have to say to me? Like, I'm putting myself out there. That's what it's about. It's like putting yourself out there, doing your best work. So if you don't like me, or if you don't like, you're not going to give me this job, or if you don't want to go out with me, I mean, it is the reframing. It still sucks sometimes because we're human.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's how we experience it, you know, and it is that moment of like, well, okay, but I did it. I'm going to celebrate that I did it. It was something I wanted to do, and I put myself out there.
Yeah.
And it's finding the victory rather than that's my choice, and the gratitude that you were saying earlier in the moment, and the power in the moment. Then, oh my God, and I'm suck and I'm bad, nobody likes me, and I smell and I stink, and blah, blah, blah. And part of my reframing was the stinky. I had to learn how to kind of crush the stinky kid mentality, because in moments, you know, for me it was like so triggering when kind of negative pushback, and my brain would process it as I'd go back instantly to like, I'm the stinky kid in school. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm that kid.
Happens so quick, right? You could be riding high. I have 100 kids tell me, you're a great teacher, you're the best teacher. Yeah. One kid says like, you're terrible, you ruined my life. And it's just like, that's it. All 100 gone.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's this whole shame spiral that happens.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
Right.
So
it happens so quickly.
In an instant.
Yeah.
You know, in an instant. And so I think it is. It's the reframing of, and finding like Oprah. I love Oprah, and she just shares a story. Once I heard her about something happened to her. She called Maya Angelou, and she told her, and she was like, "Shut up right now and say thank you. Say thank you that happened to you." Mm-hmm. And I was like,
things happen for you, not to you.
That's right. I was like,
I love that.
I was like, yeah. So I started like, anyway, it was like, even when bad things would happen or things that challenge me, like, okay, what am I supposed to learn from this? Like, what's it supposed to teach me? How am I supposed to grow out of this? Mm-hmm. Or, you know, lately it's been through this.
Yeah.
You know, because I know I'm going to get to the other side of this, and I know it's going to suck. But it's just, you know, it is mindset. Like, I think about that a lot. Like, I'm like, all right, this sucks. This is not good. I'm down. I'm going to get through this. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm resilient. Human beings are resilient people. We are designed to be successful.
Yeah.
Like, that is like, and you know, it's just the acceptance of this is hard, but it's fair. Like, this is hard, but it's fair. It's the fuel to get you to the next thing. If you learn the lesson, and then you can apply whatever you learn to the next thing. One of my favorite, when I was in graduate school, I learned about this human development theorist named Erik Erikson. Mm-hmm. You know, and he talks about like the resolution, mm-hmm. the stage resolution. And there's like these different ages, and there's different things that we're supposed to learn at certain times. And if we don't resolve the stage, then we have carryover. Mm-hmm. And then hence why we could like grow. And if we don't resolve things when we're 5, 6, 7, 8, then now you're like 40 and you got all these issues, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like really into like the resolution of roles. And for me, I didn't resolve things when I was during that 7 years old to 13-year-old time frame. So I resolved them later in my life. I had carryover.
So the way you think, and this is why I wanted to have this conversation with you in a public forum, not just private, is what we're both educators. Mm-hmm. This is what we want to try and impart. Even though I was from that like very on paper privileged background, I struggled a lot in my youth with a lot of just self-image issues and depression and stuff like that. And I would love to sit down with, you know, whatever, the 13-year-old me and explain this stuff. And from a place of like real confidence, like you will be okay, try this stuff, blah, 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 blah. I had a lot of fear. I was scared of everything in the world. So I never tried anything. Mm-hmm. You know, you could sit down with, you know, 13-year-old Melvin and like talk, like, so how do we reach these kids, and it goes for every kid and adults, but I'm aiming at like, you know, let's say like youth now all the way up through like early college. And what I brought up on my social media and on this podcast a little bit, pushback to the social justice movements. It's not because I don't believe that society should be just. It's not because I don't believe that marginalized groups should be helped. It's nothing like that. I worry about the implementation. Where is the balance between recognizing marginalized groups and their difficulties and giving excuses? Where is it helping and where is it enabling? Because a former student of mine was homeless with his sister when I was teaching. I didn't know he was. He was in a very challenging school district in LA. And he said, the teachers were generally telling me, out of one corner of their mouth, you can do anything you want. At the other corner of your mouth, society is so stacked against you, you just don't have a shot. And my friend Eric, who did like the second podcast I had on here, is a black dude from Indiana. And he said like racism there was just outward, just N-word type stuff. And then he moved to Sherman Oaks, kind of, left wing and very, woke, I guess. And he said it was a weird kind of racism. It was an empathetic, patronizing one. Let me tell you how to be better. Let me help you. Let me take care of you. Almost like he was helpless. And making someone helpless is the opposite of the stuff that we're talking about here. We're talking about grit. We're talking about pushing through. We're talking about hard work. And I worry, and I could be getting this wrong, but I've read a lot of these books because I'm trying to understand it. I worry that some of the movements to recognize and help are doing the opposite, is we're rounding the edges so much that we don't give the kids who are at the lowest points in society what they need is not lowering the rim in basketball. They need stronger legs and better skills so they can play the game. And I worry that lowering the rim is not helping them, it's hurting them. And it's a controversial thing. And I get a lot of negative venom thrown my way because, being told I'm racist and stuff by just asking these questions. But at the core of it, it's truly trying to do what I believe is what's best. And I think it aligns with the stuff we're talking about. Mm-hmm. So I want to get your thoughts on where we find that balance. How do we recognize, your life is tough. This is really, really hard, but you can do it. Like, how do we do that as a society, as educators?
I think you got to give people tools to know how to be successful. And I think that, look, I have worked... Before I was on TV, for 11 years, I was in education. I was a teacher, a counselor, an administrator. I worked elementary all the way to high school. To university, college. And I worked private school. I worked public school. I worked all boys. I worked all girls. I worked with kids severely psychologically and emotionally disturbed, like all the different demos. And one of the things that I found was like, it really is about like, I didn't treat the kids in the hood any different than I treated the kids that I taught at the affluent private school. I had the same classroom management that I did. I didn't do anything differently. And because I always believed, I was like, well, you could do it too. And a lot of it is tools and resources. So I literally operate, and I had a teacher, the principal tell me once, because she knew I'd come from this affluent school, and she's like, well, these kids can't, this is not that school.
Yes.
And I said to her,
yes.
Okay,
right.
Well, but I'm going to actually do, I remember having to do this whole thing on Amazon because the school couldn't afford to get me these books I wanted. I wanted this book, certain vocabulary book. I had Amazon, and I had a little Amazon wish list, and I bought these damn books for these kids. Because I'm like, part of it, I was like, and I remember saying to her, I think it might be your mindset too. Like, your belief that they can achieve. I believe that they can achieve. And that belief, is what is going to carry them forward. And look, maybe because they were on a different playing field because of their foundation earlier in their educational career, but we still can get here. But you as the teacher and educator, administrator need to believe that they can too. So that's part of the issue. And the meditation, I think that needs to be introduced in school. I read this article, I think it was maybe somewhere in the Midwest. It's like a predominantly black public school, and in place of detention, they were teaching the kids to meditate. That, yeah. Brilliant.
Yes.
Right? Brilliant.
Thinking outside the box a little bit,
if you teach... Look, is every kid going to walk away with this profound experience? No. That's life, right? But if maybe over half of them do, right? Some of them will, though. And they'll walk away and they'll have this, these skills and this, hopefully, a change in their mindset that will prepare them to be successful later in their life. And I feel like if that was introduced into the curriculum in every school, no matter if you were in the inner city, if you were to Beverly Hills, wherever, if there was this meditation or this mindfulness kind of program, right, that was implemented, I think it would change the world.
Melvin, what you said there about you taught the affluent kids the same as the way you taught them in the hood, you had the same high standards and things like that, that is a very controversial, being labeled like alt-right perspective in a lot of schools now.
Yeah. And look, there are moments where you have to, it's like, okay, then maybe we need to scale this back and kind of do a little bit of backtracking to get you right. Okay, yeah, like that's reality. That's part of being a good educator is you got to meet the kids where they are, right? And you got to be able to adapt to every person's individual need that's in your room. That's like 101, right?
But you're not saying historical disadvantage makes you unable to succeed.
Oh, hell no.
But that is like being pushed now. I mean, from all the graduate schools in education, and it really is frustrating because maybe there's something to that, but I'm not going to just blindly accept that. I can't. I have to know more. And a lot of these educators don't want to engage with me because it's like a third rail. But like I worry that like, society is so structured in such a racist, discriminatory way that and push that to these kids who are like, oh, it is? Oh, well then, yeah, I guess society is just terrible and I'm just set up to just fail. Like, I just don't think that's going to help. And I think they mean well, but it's just not well thought out. I don't know. It's very frustrating.
I remember I did this. I was at this school, all-girls school. It was in the inner city. And I did a leadership workshop for them. And utilizing like the same things that I had done from an affluent school I had worked at, and like the same kind of program that I developed. And by the end of it, the principal and some other people walked in, and they were like, "That's not our girls." I was like,
even that statement,
yeah. I was like, but it is. She was like blown away. I was like, well, and in my brain, I'm like, how the hell are you blown away? Like, and it told me more about her than it did about me. But and it was like fascinating to me that they just like couldn't believe the way that, I would bring ironing board, iron. I used to teach the kids how to iron. I used to teach kids how to tie necks, especially when I worked in the inner city. Yeah, I'm like, you will know how to do this. And I was actually just talking about this on the morning news because there was a story about this program that was addressing kids in the inner city. And I was like, let me tell you something. I used to tell my kids, if you want to be important, you got to look important.
That was told by your parents, right?
Yeah. Well, my dad. I remember going to school. Yeah. I was in 9th grade. I went to an all-boys high school, and we were walking out to the car, and I had like my khaki pants on or whatever I had on. And my dad was like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "I'm going to school." He's like, "Why didn't you try on your clothes?" And I was like, "Because it's an all-boys school." And some of the other guys in my class were like saying like, it doesn't matter. It's an all-boys school. And he's like, "But it needs to matter to you."
Yeah.
And it matters to us because you represent this family when you leave this house. And I was like, and I was late to school because he made me go back inside and iron my clothes.
You had high standards.
And even now, still, I iron. I will like press a t-shirt.
Yeah.
But my dad taught me that, and when I started working in the actually everywhere, it's amazing. Like, 'cause I used to do the ironing lesson everywhere. Some of the kids didn't even know whether they were affluent or how to iron.
Yeah, no, or tie a tie.
Right, it's like so. But I feel like, and it's also the person telling you, like infusing in you that confidence of like, you are smart, you are awesome. There's a kid. I've had students. It's so moving to me that now have gone on to do like awesome things and have said like it's because like you pulled me aside and said like I could do this. I could be an actor. I could be a singer, and I did it. But because you actually said to me. And I do that if I feel very strongly about it because nobody did that for me. Now, when I got in the business, there were people that were like, you're so good and you can do it, and that really encouraged me. Like when I got in and helped me a lot. Oh my God. But there wasn't anybody as a kid. I just was like the kid that I used to get in trouble. I was just like for 3 things. Not being able to keep still, singing all the time, and talking to strangers. And still, but no one ever sat me down and said like, you want to be like an actor? Here's how you do it.
Yeah.
Nobody, it was just in me. And like, I found my own ways, and I did with Google, and I found headshot photographers, and I found acting classes, and I would ask my friends, and I made it happen. And so I feel like it's important for and there's such a power in somebody looking you in your eye and saying like, who you are matters. And you're awesome.
Yeah.
And you're great, and I'm going to tell you why. And I also think because I know in my life like what it's like to feel like you don't matter, and to feel like you're not important, and to feel like you're like nothing. Like, I know what it's like. How many people out there have ever been thrown in the trash? That's a really like debilitating, like horribly shaming thing to have happen to you. To be thrown in a trash can. Like, You know, like it's horrible.
Yeah.
And so I know like what that's like. And at 7 years old, I don't know how you, I mean, it's hard to process that at the age of 7.
Yeah.
As you would as an adult, to like the magnitude of like being thrown in the trash. But I think at 7, I still had an awareness of like, this is a trash can. And it's because my aunt had this jacket that she had given me, this like purple Laker jacket, because she worked in marketing and sales. And I just done a deal with the Lakers, and they wanted my Laker bomber jacket, and I wouldn't give them my Laker bomber jacket because my aunt gave it to me, you know. And they threw me in the called me faggot, and they threw me in the trash.
I've actually only told this story like to my wife and stuff, but now I'm gonna put it on the podcast. When I was in 7th or 8th grade, a girl asked me out, and I wasn't really feeling it, and it was my best friend's ex-girlfriend. This is all 8th grade. So he started a petition around the school that said, they called me Billy back then. Do you think Billy's gay? And it went around the whole school. And like 3 like really nice like nerdy kids said no, and everyone else signed it. Just went around the whole school. And and that's, 8th grade. I was like a pretty effeminate kid in a lot of ways, I guess. But and I was a really sensitive kid, like really emotionally sensitive. And yeah, that stuff stays with you,
yes.
And now like there's stuff that I talked to my wife about where she's like, why are you so emotionally non-available? And I'm like, well, there's probably stuff back there that's still playing around in there. Like that stuff does stay with you, and it's real. And we have to recognize it and process it. And like the way that you deal with that can be positive or negative, and you got to kind of cope with this. But just when you're talking about how you experience that, like, that we all have stuff like that, like really bad times that we went through, and it stays with us.
Everybody does. And maybe you don't, and I say like, because empathy and compassion are so important, and I also believe that's learned behavior, to be an empathic person, to be a compassionate person. And everybody, like, maybe I didn't experience the exact same thing that you did, but that's the beauty of being human.
Right.
Like I always tell people, like, I don't know what it's like to be in your body and to be going through this emotional experience, but on a human level, like I know what it's like to like be like, I don't know, let's say have my heart broken, or to be rejected, or to be like to be bullied, or to be made to feel less than who I was, to be called a name. Like I know what that feels like. I don't know what it feels like in your body or your experience, but on a conceptual level, I know what that's like. And I think that that's a thing that will change the world. And every day when I sit at the desk, I always sit there and I'm like, all right, so my responsibility is to teach people lessons, and I feel like it's like I have this grand platform to do so. I'm still teaching in my head.
Yeah.
And I always say, how am I going to expand the consciousness of the human collective? Like, how am I going to do that today? Like, that's like my intention, and whether it's through, some say I'm a little bit non-traditional in my just approach to the news, because I am, in the way I share about who I am when it's appropriate, but also because I feel a lot. I have a really awesome boss, and he's like, you're a really compassionate guy, Melvin. Like, I want you to, feel the stories.
Yeah.
And when I speak about certain things, I mean, like, I can't do it not emotional or just robotic. I mean, that's not, I like to feel like, it's kind of the next wave of like, how do you deliver the news and how do you do it as yourself? And authenticity for me is like so important, and I'm very clear on like why I want to sit in this chair and why, because I want to inspire people, and I want people to know, Thursday was horrible with this shooting.
It was like 15 minutes up the road from here.
Saugus High School. It's horrible, and especially as a teacher, like it triggered me on the air after I broke that.
Yeah.
For us, and and I just was like, I always just kind of to be that voice that says it's going to be okay. And there's so many great journalists I looked up to. Peter Jennings on ABC News was so good at that. It's always like, you always felt like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like we're going to go through this together. We're going to get this information, but it's going to be like okay. And to be a trusted voice in the human collective is like very such an honor, and that's a privilege to be able to be somebody that. When there's fires, when there was the Ridgecrest earthquake, like things lately, people are watching, and they're watching to see, like, all right, what's going on? Tell me, like, and that's a big responsibility. And the only way that I was able to sit in that power is because I had to deal with all my stuff. I had to like get resolve on like the kid that got bullied and all these things, because how do you sit in a chair where your voice is amplified. If you are not clear about like, what does your voice sound like? And like, who the hell are you? It's hard to sit in a chair like this, you know?
Like I do a lot of stuff about journalism in my class. And I think that because there's so much bias and then but it's like, it's under the guise of being empathetic, like what you do, but there's a major component that it's a judgment. It's judgmental. It's not just empathetic, it's judgmental. There's someone to blame. There's someone who's the bad guy in this stuff. And, I've seen what you do. And, I did want to close with like just how your news, but also the network that found you. It's a nice match because there is something like, of course you have to reveal horrible stories like the shooting, but it's not like the news is all just terrible. Usually you watch like whatever ABC News on here, it's like shooting here and a kidnapping here and, just murders and just horrible stuff. And yours mixes it up because the world is not just the bad stuff. There's good stuff and bad stuff and all of that. But I think that we don't want robots to tell us the news or what's happening, but we do want people who are empathetic, but judgments are tricky because that's the whole point of this podcast is like, the bad guy to you might not be the bad guy to everyone. And it's more complicated than good guys and bad guys. So you can feel and not put the blame right away on whatever it is. And I think that we have our opinions about stuff like that, but we're guided by you. We're guided by what is reality by you telling us the news. And there's a lot of responsibility you have in that. So to help steer us back to it's okay, we'll be okay, things are good. Yes, this happened, but this positive thing happened too. And yes, this person did this horrible thing, but it's, there's good things and bad things and not just focusing on this is the bad guy, this is the bad side, whether it's, our president, who I have lots of issues with, but I'm tired of it. I'm tired of just hearing over and over and over again about how terrible this guy is over and over and over again. And the news just seems to just want to guide us into forcing us to think something, not feel something. And I love that you do it and your network does it in a way that's like feeling, like just getting us to feel one another and the hardships and the positives and things like that.
And I think the permission at work to be myself and to be able to bring that compassion to the work that I do. And it means a lot to me because that's like why I wanted to do this, because I wanted to really, help to guide people through. So use that frame, the word that you just framed, that was awesome because it's true. That's like what I think about. It's the teacher in me that's like, all right, here, it's like my brain goes into like, okay, like a lesson plan. So what are we getting, how are we teaching people today? And how are we, helping you through this? Because bad things happen. It's like awful. And it's part of like living in the world. It's like, it's hard, but it's fair, right? Like bad things happen. It's horrible. Like, and sometimes it's like, there like are no words to like, what do you say? And it's to be, a mentor of mine said, just have to be a human, Melvin. Like you're a real person too. And real people are watching. And look, I also recognize like, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And, and there's people that don't kind of want the compassionate, empathic. They just kind of want the facts and that's it. Okay. Like, fine. I'm not your cup of tea. But for me, like, I try to be like, think in terms of I am the viewer. And I personally am the viewer that attaches to the compassionate, the heart, that's what I like to watch, so that's who I kind of think in terms of when I'm doing my thing and just to be myself and to authentically respond to things as I would.
I teach the way I learn. I made this podcast. So I was like, this is the podcast I want to see, so I'm going to, and it's not going to be for everybody, but I'm not trying to get everybody. I'm just trying to do, something that I think I can excel at. I can't excel any other way. I'm not going to be good teaching some other way.
That's right. And that's your power.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to realize that, everything about me, the fact that I'm an actor and a singer and a dancer and a teacher and went to graduate school and I'm gay and grew up in Inglewood and my dad had a grocery store and my family's from New Orleans and I'm like all that stuff, like I believe like we exist at the intersection of like all of our identities. And it's like right there that's the power. It's like when everything comes together, that's the power and that's what makes you like awesome and amazing, it's because you are all those things. Like that's what it is. It's like that cocktail, and you drink it, you're like, ooh, that's yummy. That's good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I didn't always, you know.
No, well, it's the hard work. It's all this stuff. Some of the things that I got, I just scribbled down that are really good. It's like the idea of high standards for yourself, for, you know, holding yourself for high standards for working, and then also for those you're trying to help. Specific skills. You do have to get specific skills. I always thought the Rocky movies, I love, you know, martial arts and stuff, and I thought the Rocky movies were always funny because it was just like the will. He just wanted it so bad that he won. It's like, that's not the way it works. If you don't spend time in the pool, you've never swam before, and your friend's out there drowning, you're like, I really want to save him. You don't become Michael Phelps. Like, you have to develop these skills. And that's a big part of getting where you want to go. And then meditation. That's a really crucial part of this, you know, the idea of the proper mindset is you have to get right in your mind. We have so much chatter. We have so much just to slow down, calm down. You know, like that is a really important part that I didn't really consider before. And then last thing that I scribbled down is, you know, taking your hardship, taking the things that have gone against you and turning it into your power. That's what makes you unique. That's what makes you special. That's the good stuff in your life. And if you can view it as the good stuff, then nothing can stop you. If you embrace hardships as that's what's going to make me better, then when they happen, you go, oh, damn it, but awesome, this is going to make me better. And it's extremely hard. Mm-hmm. The stuff that you and I have been talking about for an hour now is very, very difficult. And like, yeah, it's difficult. Yes. But it's also difficult to have a life where you don't find any success, where you feel miserable every day. That's difficult too. Pick your difficulty. Mm-hmm. It's difficult to stay in bed all day and feel like a lazy piece of crap. Yeah. And it's difficult to get up every morning at 2 a.m. Yeah. So pick the difficulty you want. And that you have that power. You have that choice. Don't think you don't have choice in this world just because of whatever hand life dealt you. You can choose to, life hands you 7-2 offsuit, which for many people it does. And you could look at that card and flip it over and just not play, but you're not going to win. Or you can play it and you might win. You might not. You might still lose, but you can play the hand or you cannot. And I'm going to advocate for playing the hand.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Play the hand. True. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, we did. Now, Melvin, this was awesome. Where can people find you? You should follow his social media. Like, it's awesome. And it's really like, I stopped messaging you on your stories because I was like, I'd always send like, this is amazing, this is amazing. Then I just started sending the fire emoji. And then I think I just stopped because your inbox is probably just like me over and over again when other people are trying to get a hold of you for more important stuff. But where can people find you?
So Instagram or all social media actually at _Melvin, MELVIN, Robert, ROBERT. And you know, if you have Spectrum cable, you can find me every morning 5 to 9 a.m. on Spectrum News 1, and then Wednesday nights I host another show called The SoCal Scene that, you know, re-airs multiple times throughout the week.
Awesome. Well, thank you for doing this, man.
I feel so honored to be included.
Great. Thank you. This has been Cylinder Radio. The success of this podcast and the educational revolution that I hope you will be a part of is dependent on those who find value in it. Please take a few moments to review us on iTunes so the show is more easily found. If there was a perspective on today's topic that was not highlighted in this episode, or you have an idea for an episode topic that you want to understand more deeply, please email us at cylinderradio@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram at Will Roosh, WILLREUSCH. Thank you for your support, and I look forward to the next one.